This company was really founded by our original owner, who was Tim Murphy, who owned Presidential Pools. At one point was the largest gunite builder here in the Arizona market. Several years ago, he sold the company to private equity group. So we're now owned by a private equity group. And when I started with the company 4.5 years ago, we were a lot more limited to our offerings than we have today. And we were only offering product into maybe 13 states. As of the end of last year, 42 states in the US have bought some level of product from us. Now, Tim Murphy was a gunite builder. So all of our strength was always in the Sun Belt region. It was Florida, Texas, Arizona, and a little bit out of California. When I got put into this position, I said, look, if we're ever really going to want to grow, then we're missing a huge market, which is the vinyl market. And we never really had too many offerings for vinyl because Tim Murphy was a gunite guy. He didn't really care about the vinyl side. So we're starting to R&D and produce more products that can help us into the vinyl and markets as well. So what I'm saying is we're not just sitting back and saying, okay, we got product, go out and sell it. We're continuing to do R&D all the time. I'm trying to develop either new technology or a better mousetrap for you guys. Because the bottom line, I want to be able to have products available for you guys that maybe you have a need or can make you more profitable in building your pools. So this is Derek Smith in the gray shirt. He's going to be your regional. Tony Gonzalez owns a rep group called Performance Link. He covers all the Southeast and the state of Florida. He's been with us at least 6 years before. 7 years. Yeah. So, and then in the Midwest and in the Northeast, just for you to know, we do use another rep group besides Performance Link. We use a company called Mid-America Sales, Mass Sales. They cover our center region of the country from Oklahoma north, and then they've got some representation up in the Northeast. So, we're trying to become more of a national presence in the industry. And you can see, well, no, you can't yet because it's not that slide. So this is my breakout of the states covered by my 3 regionals right now. Okay, this is always one that I like to talk about because there's confusion. Come grab a seat. Come on.
Yes. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right.
Bad Uber drivers.
That's all right.
That's cool. Thank you, guys.
I was just starting to cut the meat up, so we're just getting into the meat and potatoes of it. So lighting, it's been interesting how the industry perceives lighting in the industry. We know when the Department of Energy outlawed incandescent bulbs and everything had to start going to LED, that became very favorable for us for a couple of reasons. But a lot of customers think about, and I get this question asked all the time, how bright are your lights? As compared to what? So the misconception is what creates brightness of a light. So there's 2 characteristics of LED lighting. There's lumen output and there's what's called Kelvin rating. Kelvin rating is the color of the light. Lumens is how much light can project out from that light into a body of water before it starts to fall off. So as an example, a 300-watt light is going to have a lot more lumens than a 100-watt light. So it's going to shine out into the body of water further. But those 2 lights can have the same Kelvin rating. They can have the same color. So when people ask for brightness, it's really Kelvin rating. It's not lumens. Well, I say that because a very common Kelvin rating in our industry for LED lights is 5,000 Kelvin. 5,000 Kelvin is what's called pure white, and it's bright white. Incandescent bulbs, no matter what size they are, have a Kelvin rating of 2,700. So you think of them as being white, and they were back in the day, but they're very yellowy white. Because when you get below 4,000 Kelvin, the oranges and the yellows and stuff start to become more prevalent in the color. When you get to 4,000, you start getting out of the reds and oranges. And when you get to as high as our Kelvin ratings are, you're actually introducing some blues into the white. So the analogy that all of you can recognize this is if you've seen cars on the highway and you've seen them coming up the highway and they've got these headlamps that are almost bluish, that is an extremely high Kelvin rated bulb that's in those lamps. So we've got two different product mixes. Oh, and let me touch on turtle friendly. Let me explain that. We have a lineup of lights that are called turtle friendly, which means during turtle season, which will begin in certain parts of the country and around mid-March and ends all the way to October 31st. All commercial properties and residential properties that have pools backing up to the ocean that don't have some level of an embankment to keep hatchlings from seeing the lights in their pools are supposed to have what are called turtle lights. And what happens there, if it's a true turtle light, the hatchlings don't see the color at all. It looks black to them. Whereas if they were to look at any other color, they see these little blue dots and it confuses the hatchlings. So they start going inland, fall in a pool, and of course they're going to drown immediately in chlorinated water. So the state of Florida probably has 90% of all nesting in the country. It does go all the way up to the Outer Banks. And then there are certain areas around the Gulf in Texas that have it as well. So we make a turtle light, and I'll show you some slides a little later. Anybody who sees our version of our turtle light compared to our biggest competitor, which in this case is Pentair, 100 out of 100 people go to my light. But I'll tell you about that in a little bit. So that's turtle lighting. Okay, so this is our most exciting new offering. And I want to say that these lights won't physically be in our inventory until probably about mid-March. But we've already started showing these. We showed them at the international show. We just showed them at the Atlantic City show. Have been extremely well received across the board by everyone. In fact, Shannon brought his guys over at the Pool Corp ISC show. That was the first time we'd ever actually shown them. And everybody was kind of excited about these. So there's a couple of unique propositions to this light that make it different. One is we have a clear trim ring. Now, we kind of did this design because if anybody is aware of the Spectrum light that we've sold for years, one of the biggest reasons people liked the Spectrum light was that it had a clear face ring. So when the light was off in the pool, it just blended into the pool. So they really liked that look. So in developing this particular light, we decided to do a clear trim ring. But we also have another trim ring. Now you would think this is metal. It's not really chrome, it's not stainless, but it does have a chrome look to it. The advantage to this, it's not going to rust at all. And the other thing about our lights is these are trim rings. So when you go to install them, you just pop them off, you get your pilot screw, you install them in the niche, and you just lock them back on there. So the beauty of this light is, and it's hard for you to see, so I want to invite you guys to come up and take a look. But when these lights are on, okay, where's power?
Are you plugged in?
Huh?
Are you plugged in the back? To the wall?
Looks like it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't sound like it's.
Oh, well, that's a little late.
Oh, well, that would help, right? Plugs.
Lights now blind.
Yeah.
Now, if you ever come up and have a chance to look at this, well, I'm going to prop it up just a little bit. The spa size light, the 6-inch, is on right now. And what I want you to see is that the light is emitting through the trim ring as well. So when this light's on, you see nothing but light coming out of that light. There's no ring at all that you're going to see. So the clear trim ring, I think, is going to be the biggest success we have. But if somebody really thinks that that metal look is a more professional, upgraded look, then of course we're going to have that light available as well with that metal version of the trim ring. These lights are going to be available with. Is everybody a little familiar with the Vivid Retro light? The one that uses the retro plug kit on the existing cable? You folks familiar with that? Everybody's somewhat familiar with that. Okay, we're going to have the exact same concept with this version of light. We're going to have a retro plug. And this is what it's going to look like. Now, currently with our Vivid lineup, the plug kit has a QR code on it. And if you scan it, it takes you immediately to a short video on how to build it out in the field. I'm the one that did the video. We're going to have the same thing with this retro plug kit. We're going to have a QR code taking you to a video. But I would tell you this plug kit is awesome. It's got half the parts of the 400,001. The other beauty of the Galaxy Bright is that every light's going to have the exact same type of connection on the back. That's not necessarily the case with the plug kits that we currently have with the Vivid lineup. This light's going to be consistent across the entire footprint. And we are going to have pipe light, spa, and pool size in this light as well. But this is the new plug kit that we'll have for the Galaxy Bright. And again, we'll offer a light that'll come with the plug kit already in the box for retro. Or if you're a builder and need cords, then we are going to have cord kits, 50, 100, and 150 foot cords with this over molded plug kit on the end of the cord. All of our cords will be 14 gauge. And in fact, when I start talking a little bit more about this one, that's huge because nobody makes a pipe light cord. I'll call this just a pipe light. Nobody makes a pipe light cord that's 14 gauge. The biggest gauge you can get at all is 16, and that's generally only 150 foot cord kits. Anything less than that is typically going to be 18 gauge. And a little bit later on into the training, you're going to recognize more and more how important this 14 gauge could be if you wanted to start using our Galaxy Bright lights. This is the Vivid, but before I go into the Vivid, I want to tell you the biggest advantage to this light right here. Right now with our Vivids, we make two colors of white, warm white, bright white. We make a blue only, and then we make a Jandy version, a Hayward version, a Pentair version. With this particular light, if you buy a multicolor, you can actually program this thing right on site to whatever you need it to be. And it's the same technology we have every day we go to a POS at a store with our credit card and we tap the POS machine and it transfers the information. We have what's called Galaxy Bright 360 app for both Android and iPhone platforms. It's free. There's two tabs. One is RGBW. The other tab takes you to white. On the RGB side, you're going to see Hayward, Pentair, or Jandy. You hit what you want it to be. You hit a button called Program. And on every light, you're going to see a little symbol that looks very similar to what those POS machines have. You just get that phone up to that signal, and in about 10 seconds, the phone goes, bam, you just programmed it. And that's how easy it is. Now, it's got to be done in a dry environment. Once the light's put in the water, signal does not transfer through water. But if that's the case, and for whatever reason you need to reprogram it, just get it back out of water, reprogram it to what you need it to be. And from a distribution standpoint, that's huge because now you're not having to worry about Jandy, Hayward, and Pentair. You're going to carry one multicolored light. And for you guys, if you ever wanted to have a light in your truck and you go to a site and you've never been there before, now all of a sudden you don't know what you're dealing with. And then you see, let's say, Pentair automation. Oh, that's cool. I can put a light in right now for you. Just go out and program that thing to Pentair and get it done. On the white side, where we were talking about Kelvin rating, sometimes somebody who's had nothing but that lower Kelvin rating doesn't like going all the way up. It's too bright for them, especially older clientele a lot of times. Well, in that case, on the white side, there's a bar on the app. You just slide it from 6,500 Kelvin all the way down to 2,700, wherever you want it to be. You can even dim the light. So you can take it down from 100% brightness all the way down to 25%, all in one application. Tap that thing, bam, it did it for you. So now you can have one white light and satisfy whatever the situation would be as well. So this is called near field communication. This is really cool stuff. And we've been doing it at the shows. The other thing about that is you don't have to have power to this light. I can do it right now with this light all day long. So you don't have to power the thing up yet. You can just program it right away. We've been doing it at the shows lately. Now, this is the Vivid. This is the one that we've had ever since I've been on board with the company. This is still a great light. Both lights are like 30 watt. The big pool size lights are like 30 watt options. So we're getting a lot of lumens out of them. Well, that was the other thing I want to talk to you about real quick too. Get some of this stuff off there, but so we make a 30 watt in both. If you're talking about the equivalency to an old incandescent light, it's basically a 300 watt version. The lumen output is pretty much identical to the 300 watt. The thing about that is, let's say there's a commercial pool that had 500 watt lights, it still only had a 2700 Kelvin bulb in there. You can take my 300 watt with the 6500 Kelvin, and it's actually brighter in that same body of water. And right now, inspectors don't understand that conversion on how to do that. So I've got a lot of commercial pools around areas that sell 500 watt lights are just putting in my 30 watters, including like hotel pools. You know, we've got Hilton properties in California have our 30 watt Vivid lights in their pools. We've got several commercial applications that are using our lights right now. So within the Vivid lineup, this is the way this plug kit looks. A little bit different, few more parts to it. It's an actual combination kit, meaning that the way you connect our pool light to our pool light is by use of this triangulated bracket with 3 screws that screw into the back of the housing. But our spa light is similar in design to this. So in the bag, there's also a 1-inch threaded nut that would be, so it's kind of a pool spa combination kit. That's the 400,001. We've been using that now for 5 years. And we still have both options, but these you have to be pretty specific on your color option that you want. I'll show you a pool that's got our blue only in it. It's an absolutely beautiful color. And it's the same price point as the white, so it saves the homeowner on the retail side over a full multicolor. And it doesn't require automation. It's just turn it on, turn it off. So both lights, we're going to have blue only in this light as well. There's our blue only. So far anybody, I've never heard anybody complain about this blue. In fact, they love this color. Now that's what it is blue. But again, it's a better price point to them than a multicolor light. And as you can see, this is one Vivid pool light in this pool. But what I want you to note is how evenly distributed across that entire pool that light is. There's not really much shadowing at all happening with that light in the pool. That's been the beauty of the Vivid lights, is we remove, because of the lens design, we remove a lot of the shadowing that some other lights still get in the pool. And then I called the dealer back and I said, "Did you see the soffit on the overhead? Did you see what that looks like?" I go, "It looks like there's strip lighting up there." That's how much lighting was coming off that pool light. So the Vivids are really strong opportunities. Now within the Vivids, again, we've got to have separate warm white to cool white. So these two pools are showing the examples of the color difference. So this one on the right is our standard Vivid cool white with 6500 Kelvin. And if you notice, look at the palm trees and then look up way up to the top left where his second story balcony is. That pool's actually projecting light up into his balcony as well. So that's a 6500. Now that could be too bright for some people, and you can't dim these lights, or too high a wattage to have a dimmer for them. The one on the left is a warm white. You see how it's a much like softer color, more appealing, little brighter than a standard incandescent bulb, but it's still that warmer color. And that was the dealer who put an original cool light, and the homeowner complained it was too bright, and so he put a warm white. But if you notice, the screen enclosure is still pretty lit up at night from that one. So these lights have done a very good job for us. This is our turtle light. Now, pool 6 at the pool park that we're going to go to tonight, this was pool 6. This had a white interior finish. They resurfaced the pool with a black interior pebble finish. So when they did that, they replaced these lights and put a brighter version of a light in there. But my point there is our competitor's version of their light is leaning a lot more to red. And ours is this true amber color. And everybody likes this color better. So this will also satisfy, by the way, if anybody has never heard of a night sky community. If you've ever heard that anywhere and around your areas, night sky communities are required that all lighting, street lamps, house lamps, everything that's turned on in the evening has to be 3,000 Kelvin or below. And that's a kind of an air pollution or a light pollution rule that they have. So my warm white light and this light will also satisfy that. And we're actually trying to get them to endorse our lineup of lights so we can add their logo as night sky. They have several night sky communities in and around Arizona because of all the desert areas that they have. About a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, we fortunately came on board with a line of LED replacement bulbs, regular bulbs that's thread into standard housings. Our Vivid bulbs, what made me real excited about this is all of the lights we're talking about so far are all low voltage. We do not manufacture anything that's 120 volt. So everything's got to have a transformer if you're replacing a high voltage. But within the bulbs, we have both 120 volt options and 12 volt options as well. So we make a bright white, which is like 5,000 Kelvin. I can't even let you look directly at this. This is a spotlight, 5,000 Kelvin. Then we make multicolor options. Now, the multicolor options have their own unique 12 color sequencing to them. So automation would just do nothing more than just turn it on and off. But I have all of those available as both high voltage, low voltage options. And then in about 20 days, we're going to have a bulb, a brand new bulb that you can't even find in the industry. You definitely won't find it online anywhere. It's going to be white or blue only. So they flip it on once, it goes to white. They flip it off and flip it back on, it goes to blue. So to me, that's the perfect homeowner who, like, when they want to go out and swim laps or something, they're going to put it on white. Or if the kids are over and they're swimming in the pool, blah, 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 keep it on white. But as soon as everybody's out of the pool, just go flip that thing to blue and just have the ambiance in the pool of having a blue light. So we're going to have those within probably the next 20 days available as well in both 120 and 12. In with the multicolor lights, this is a card that everybody should get, which talks about the color sequencing. There's 7 solid colors and 5 color shows to it. This bulb, if you ever buy one, you want to be able to remind people that it will lock into a color. If they take any color and keep it on at least 5 minutes, it'll remain in that color. It remains the memory. If they need to get it out of that color, then what they do on their light switches go 1, 2, 3. And when they do it just that fast, the bulbs will flicker twice very quickly, rapidly, and then go back to red, which is the starting color sequence on the solid colors. And then at that point, every time they flip the switch on and off, they're starting to rotate through until they get to that next color they want to keep on for at least 5 minutes. So there's a way to unlock and lock the color in. Now, this has become the second most important product in our product mix. I've had tons of success talking to builders about this. We have a transformer that has several very unique features to it over everybody else's transformers. One is I make a stainless version. I also make this version, which is a powder coated aluminum. Corrosion standpoint, we've basically answered that. We don't have the issues that some of the other ones that are just cast galvanized, powder coated galvanized would have. But really what's interesting about this transformer is everything on the low voltage side is no longer using wire nuts. You're using a low voltage bus bar. The other thing that's very unique to this is we have a 15 volt tap, which is very unique for the industry as well. And I'm going to show you in a minute, especially regarding pipe lights, how important that 15 volt can be for you. But we also have what is called a dual stage transformer. It's a very heavy transformer because the core has double windings. Okay, so what? Well, we also have 13-volt taps. It means you can use every tap on this bus bar consecutively on the same job. You're not just restricted to tying everything into one. So if you have shorter cord runs, tap into the 13s. If you got the longer runs, and the chart I'll show you in just a second, which, by the way, I think, Mike, does everybody have that in these packets, do you think? That chart you did on the...
Yeah, we got
Okay.
all in the bag.
So if you would, I want you please all to find on the right side, there's a chart towards the back that's got some voltage tap readings and things. That one, right? Yeah. I want you to pull that out because we're going to go to that right now. And this is where at all the shows I show this chart and people are just like, wow, we didn't know. How come we've never been taught this? Yeah, there's a chart and there's going to be a lot of different pipe lights listed. Do you have one back in the corner? Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go to this one right now. Mine is showing a little bit of color, but what you have is the same thing, just in an all blue white print. So when we brought these transformers in, I was kind of curious. Okay, so what's our advantage to having a 15-volt tap? Why is that a big deal? Then I started thinking about how the industry, I keep hearing it throughout the industry about how the industry doesn't think pipe lights are a good quality product. They're garbage. They don't last. So I started thinking about that and I was like, okay, how come they don't last? Well, keep in mind that everybody's pipe lights, their cords are the smallest gauge cable you can get in the industry, 18 gauge cable. Not a lot of copper in those cables. The other thing is the builders are now taking their junction boxes all the way back to the equipment pad in most cases. They're not getting them close to the pool anymore. So what they're doing is they're running hundreds and hundreds of feet of 18 gauge cable back to the junction box. They're putting a 300-watt transformer. All they're thinking about is the wattage side of the transformer. Oh, I got plenty of wattage. And then 6 months, 8 months down the road, they start getting phone calls. Lights are starting to fail on them. Well, the industry says, okay, we'll warranty. But the problem is you're not solving the problem. You don't know you're not identifying the true problem. The problem is everybody else's transformers that only go to 14 volt. If you look at that chart right now, there are like all the most commonly used pipe lights in the industry listed there. So I've got the Haywards, the Jandys, the Pentairs, the Glow-Brite, Micro-Brites, and even mine are listed on there. We're all subject to this. And if you notice down each column, there's a number represented there. What I want you to realize is that is the cumulative cord runs to that transformer. So if you take all those lights and add up all those cord runs back to that transformer, what happens is if you exceed those numbers for that particular light, some of those lights are not getting 12 volts. Because every one of those numbers are based on every one of those lights receiving 12 volts at that voltage tap on there. So what does that mean? Well, the lights initially on install will work because the circuit boards are designed to be able to operate temporarily as low as 10.5 volts to as high as 16 volts. But the ones that are operating below 12 volts are never going to last. They're just not. Because as voltage goes down, amperage goes up, which equates to heat through the copper wiring. And it's coming into the back of this little tiny light to this little tiny circuit board back here. And if anybody's ever left their phone in the car when it's hot and they get back and that thing's like not coming back on because it overheated as a safety protection, circuit boards with LEDs don't like that heat over time. So the little capacitor, the resistor that's on the back starts failing. So what happens? Lights start flickering. Lights will fall out of sync with other lights. Or a blue LED is the most commonly used LED in multicolor lights because it's used in like every other color. So it's one most commonly used. So that one will start going bad first. And when that happens, it'll dim, it'll be a little dimmer, and some of the hues will change because you no longer have blue being introduced. All of those are manifestations of the fact that that light is begging for more power. But guess what? There's not enough power to get to those lights. So where we keep replacing them under warranty, eventually the homeowner's out of warranty. And now they're paying full retail price and still nobody's identified the problem. So I say to builders, look, would I love you to buy my lights? Absolutely. But if you don't, man, you need to recognize you got to get more power to those lights. And in a lot of cases, that could mean putting multiple transformers on a pool, depending on how many lights and what the cord distance is. So people will ask me this all the time. Well, how many lights can I attach to your transformer? And I go, that's the wrong question. The question is, how many feet of cable can you attach to one transformer? And the other thing about my transformer is each one of those taps you can use. So if you look at any one of those lights on there, and let's say you see 185 feet on 15 volt, that's per 15 volt tap. And then if you then look at that light and go, well, how many feet can I put on 13 volt? You can actually maximize this thing out. So this may save you a lot from having to go multiple transformers. You can do it all within one transformer. This one happens to be our 150 watter. So the difference is it's got two 15 and two 13s. I've got a 300 watter, has 3 and 3. So you can put a lot of lights as long as you remember, do not exceed 80% of the capacity of the transformer. So if you can stay within 240 watts on a 300 watter, and the fact that we have 150 watter, that's 120 watts. You may only need my 150 watter, depending on how many pipe lights you're going to put on the project on there. So we hand these charts out like all the time. Guys are like, oh, can I take that? And I go, yeah, please do. So we've had a lot of success being able to let the builders recognize that, look, I like my lights and I'd love you to use them, but I get it, you're in the program. So keep using it. Just understand what you need to do back at the pad to keep from getting the calls. Now, the thing about this light, our Galaxy Bright pipe light, all of our cables are 14 gauge. I'm going to be the only manufacturer in the industry that will offer a pipe light, an AC pipe light with 14 gauge cable. So on the bottom of that chart, there are two lights of ours. One's the Spectrum Nitrous and the other is the Galaxy Bright. Go over to the 15 volt tap on this 9 watt Galaxy Bright and look at what that number says. 450 plus feet per tap, per 15 volt tap, because of the 14 gauge. This light's going to be a home run for builders who decide they want to work with this, because if they use our transformer in conjunction and follow that, they're not getting callbacks on these lights. They're going to last. We over-engineered this thing from a heat sink standpoint of view. So not only is the entire back of this unit a heat sink internally, but then we also put heat dissipation fins on the outside of this thing. This will not get hot and will not overheat. So it takes a standard, any kind of a standard wall fitting, to be honest with you. We may be trying to develop something like this one here, because I like the fact that once you thread this in here and you Marsite up to this, you will see nothing when this light's turned off. You'll see a lens. That's all there's going to be there. It's going to be the cleanest look that you can have in your pools. Also, in conjunction with the fact that we've made these Galaxy Brights, we've been being asked about this forever. We are now going to have a jetted lighted bubbler. Now, this can actually probably take some of my competitors' lights because of the depth of the housing inside there, as long as it just threads in. But the way this thing works, this is kind of cool. You set it in the steel, tie it into the steel, take a 3-inch piece of pipe, you bring it up above the deck, cap it off, and pressure test it. Shoot the floor, cut that thing flush with the floor, and then you come right back, and for some reason we've lost that fitting. It's not in here. All we've got is the lens.
Yeah, you're mentioning.
But anyway, we have another fitting that basically looks like this for the most part with a water stop. You just glue that right into the 3-inch pipe, and this is perfectly flush. You Marsite up. And inside that fitting is this lens right here. And this is all the more of a footprint. You see top left corner of this box. That's our pipe light. That's our bubbler light. You've got whatever, 2.5-inch footprint in the floor. And at about 25 gallons a minute, depending on how much water level is above this, you're gonna get a bubbling effect of about 16 to 18 inches with like 25 gallons a minute in there. We also designed this in one sense, because some of the builders didn't like the fact that the conduit going down and then up and around was gonna fill up with so much water. But let me tell you guys, you definitely need to get water behind this light. Because if you don't, you're hoping that this heat dissipation is working, being in a dry environment. That's why some of the lights in the industry have been failing, is because they want you to put that gasket with the intent of not getting water behind the light. You want water behind the light. But the way this thing's gonna fit in there is it tapers down specifically, so at the bottom of our housing, it just kind of slips right down in after you've put the conduit. And the only thing that's going to hold water is what's immediately in the channel, right there. You won't necessarily get, I mean, you may get just a little bit of water getting back into that conduit, but it's not just flooding back all the way back. So that's also going to be available around the exact same time that all of our Galaxy Brights will be available, which will be about mid-March on that. Oh, let me just show you how bright this thing is. This happens to be a white one, I believe. No, this is multicolored. It's going through one of the color sequences. Yeah. I think this is a Pentair multicolor, but it's kind of interesting. I always assumed back in the day that the higher the wattage of LED, the brighter it would be. And I guess maybe back 4 years ago that might have been true, but now they've made so much advances on the energy efficiency of LEDs now that you can actually get, like this light right here being 9 watt and our Spectrum nicheless light being 13 watt. This actually has more lumen output than the 13 watt. And again, the lower the wattage of the light, if you look on those charts, the lower the wattage of the light, the longer cord runs you get on there. So this Galaxy Bright's going to be, this is going to be I think a good opportunity for us. All right, so the only other thing on lighting I wanted you to be aware of that we're going to do, we've never really focused too much on commercial pools, not from a new construction standpoint of view. The Pivot Light's a great retro light for commercial pools. Derek Smith and I went to a homeowner association pool down in South Florida. And there were 2 guys there that never used our plug kit before. So after the second light, that guy was like gold. The one dude was dropped. There were 18 lights in this pool, in a big lagoon pool, right? The one guy was going into the pool. He was pulling them up on the deck. The other guy was just banging them out. 2 guys changed 18 lights out. And it was less than 4 hours, I think, for 2 guys. And I've seen residential pools, 1 light, it's taken more than 4 hours for 1 guy to even get that cable out of the pool. So it's been a great pool light for us on commercial as well, but we are actually going to manufacture and are manufacturing a niche for our lights. And the thing about this niche, which is really cool, the other thing that people liked about our Spectrum is, let's say this got a little cocked in the wall. Well, now we have an adjustable ring. So just like our Spectrum niche, you put a little bit of an adhesive on here and you just kind of slide that thing in and you're guaranteed for this to be flush with the inside wall at all times. And then you got your water stop around it as well. So we're going to have a pool size and we're going to have and it'll be bonded. It'll have a bonding load. And then we'll have a spa size, 6-inch size as well. So if anybody ever has an application where you want to do a more conventional or a combination pool size in some of the pipe lights, that might be something you might like to look at. We give you also these like plaster caps, so the guys aren't getting all the mud and all the garbage in there. And So we kind of thought this through, so you don't have to duct tape over the front and all that craziness that some of the builders have done over the years. So that's on the lighting side of everything. With Vivid, the majority of our Vivid lights have always been sold with a gray trim ring. We do have an optional white. We also have a very specific light that we offer that can fit a glow-right housing in the wall. There's a small adapter we have that just snaps in, and then our Vivid nicheless will attach to that. If anybody knows what the Pentair Sunlight is, anybody know that light? Pentair Sunlight? It's a spa-sized light that Pentair made years ago that had an MR16 halogen bulb in it, and it was a 75 watt or 250 watt version. That thing burnt hot, super hot. I mean, you could burn yourself on the glass lens underwater. That's how hot it burned. They've discontinued that for years. Well, this particular light, our spa light, I've got a cheat sheet that I made up on something you can do to fit this particular VLS spa light into that niche, because the niche is about 3/8 of an inch smaller in diameter than what we know today are spa niches. So even Pentair doesn't have a replacement for their own Pentair Sunlight. This light will fit that niche all day long. All you got to do is two little minor things. It's not a challenge at all. So if you ever run into one of those, there's an answer. And I've been to 2 different shows in the last 3 weeks, and guys are like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me." I've got customers that haven't had lights for a year because we didn't know what to put in there. And I said, well, this will work. So that's really what's cool about this particular version. And I'm thinking, I haven't tested it yet, but I'm certainly thinking that our spa version of this light will also do the same thing. I just have to make some measurements, but I hope this will also do it. Because that'd be a good answer for a lot of people for their light. So that's kind of our lighting, everything to do with our lighting in a nutshell. One thing I always like to do with our bulbs, I like people to feel it. Kind of substantial, it's heavy. So I've been to the factory where those bulbs are made, and I was wondering why they were so heavy. So our biggest competitor is one of the big 3 right now on bulbs. We have a better warranty. We have a brighter bulb. We have nicer retail packaging if anybody kind of does any level of retailing with their company. But the bulb's heavy. So I was trying to figure out, why is it so heavy? I assumed the outside housing was ceramic because it looks ceramic, but they said it's absolutely not ceramic. Ceramic's very fragile, so shipping ceramic is very tricky and it's very expensive. It does heat dissipate really well. So I said, okay, what are we looking at here with this bulb? So there's 3 layers of heat dissipation factored built into this bulb. The outer shell is actually a heat dissipating plastic. On the inside wall of that is an aluminum sheet that's welded to it. And then what really makes it heavy, before they install that circuit board, they fill that entire cavity with a heat dissipating silicone product. So there's 3 layers of heat dissipation on that bulb. So my point is, when somebody calls and says, hey, that bulb overheated, I'd be like, nah, I don't believe so. I can't believe that could have happened on there. So we sold over 22,000 of those bulbs last year, and it was our first full year with those bulbs. So it's growing. We also, this box right here, if anybody ever had some kind of a retail location, I have the ability to supply these bulb boxes here for someone who's really going to support the bulbs for us. And the beauty as well is we got plenty of inventory. So we ship everything out of here. One of our shipping policy is if it's UPS, it goes out guaranteed within 48 hours of the receipt of the PO. And if it's a freight carrier, it's 72 hours to get out. And then depending on where you're at, it could be 4 days, it could be 3 days, whatever the case may be. So we can get product out and get it. And where are you folks at?
Texas.
Oh, you're Texas as well. So you've met Adam. Barrel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Adam's at the Southwest show. It's overlapping this week, so he had to go there, so. All right, so that's our lighting. So I don't know if anybody would like to just take just a little short, like bathrooms are right to the right on down the hall if you needed or not, but I could kind of jump right in next into a little bit about the in-floor product and go through that for some folks. You let me know how you want to do it. I'll keep moving if you want me to. You want me to keep moving? Okay. All right, so our in-floor system was created years ago by the owner, Tim Murphy, because at the time, Presidential Pools and Shasta Pools here in Arizona were the two largest builders. Shasta Pools has been an A&A in-floor company, and Tim was selling their product for his pool. And he said, why am I selling the exact same product as my biggest competitor? So if Tim Murphy was an entrepreneur, I mean, this guy would get an idea and just go buy a company or something and start doing things. So he developed our own in-floor system, and it's the Blue Square Q360 system. It's an outstanding system. There's a couple of things about it, especially since the advent of the variable speed pump being required now on pads instead of high head single speed pumps. See, back in the day, in-floor systems required not only flow, but needed fairly high pressure to go through the valve to activate the zones. So you're running 20, 22 PSI at the valve for it to even work properly. When Tim developed this valve, and then the fact that Department of Energy started outlawing single speed high head pumps and going to variables, it fell right in our lap that our system is awesome because our valve does not want high pressure. It wants about 12 to maybe 15 PSI max. Anything over that, you actually start doing exactly the opposite of what you would think would happen. So our valve just simply has a gear cassette with a bunch of gears and a turbine. And as that turbine spins, it rotates the gears and it switches from zone to zone. Well, when you put too much pressure in this valve, it actually starts slowing this turbine down. It doesn't speed it up, it slows it down. So it's being choked in there with all that pressure. And then you'll get a call and go, hey, I can't get this thing out of zone. It's staying in the same zone. First thing I'm going to say is, okay, what pump do you have running the system? And if it's on an RPM setting, what RPM setting do you have it on? I mean, our systems are designed to operate at either 60 gallons a minute per zone or 80 at the most. But if, you start putting these big 2.5 horsepower variable speed pumps on there, you can get 60 gallons a minute at probably 2,300 RPMs. You start cranking that thing up to 3,000 RPMs, you're at like 100 gallons a minute or more, right? Well, this thing will choke out and it won't work properly. So now I tell people just tweak this thing, tweak your variable until you're getting that 12 to 15 PSI going through the valve, and then this thing will work all day long. We've got builders now that just absolutely love our valve over everybody's in the system. I make that as our new construction version. But then if you're ever doing a renovation on a pool, if it has caretaker, Paramount, or A&A, we actually have retro valves that will retro up to all the pipes out of the floor. And we sell a lot of caretaker replacements. We do a lot of C99 caretakers. So we have a valve specifically that'll match right up to the pipes coming out. We got a valve that'll work perfectly for A&A, and then we got a valve that we can work with the Paramount system as well. And then we have all the retro heads available as well for their systems. So we have the PCC 2000, the Pool Valet, the A&A Quick Clean and Gamma 3, 4, and then the caretaker C99. So we can help a lot of people out with, but what I tell them is when they're doing a renovation like that, if they're replacing valve and all the heads, then I say, well, what kind of pump is operating that system? Because if it's an older high speed or, high flow pump, you may have to figure out how to throttle that down a little bit. You're going to have to divert some flow, or you're going to run into that problem with too much pressure going through the valve. So that's the Q360. Now, in the last couple of years, when, during COVID, pipe prices started going through the roof and everything was really high cost, in-floor started to slow down. It was becoming too high of a retail point. for customers. And still to this day, us, Paramount, A&A, we've all been into a little bit of a decline with Inflor. Now things are starting to get back a little bit better, but basically, does everybody kind of understand how an Inflor system works? You know, everything is designed to push debris to a debris catching drain, and then it evacuates that debris out instead of catching it in the pump basket, which we don't want to do that and cavitate the pump. You put a large debris catching product in the system, and this is where it's caught, is in this basket. And then you just empty it out accordingly, and everything continues to run normally. That's basically an Inflor system. Out here in Arizona, we sell tons of it because we get a lot of dust storms and stuff. So there's constantly debris getting into pools. In Florida, we don't sell as many because probably 80% of our pools are caged. They've got screen enclosures. So it's a little overkill in all honesty. But I want you to think about this concept as well. And this has always been the case. It's like nobody promotes it this way though. What's the best way to circulate chemicals in a pool? Through 12 to 15 heads or through 2 or 3 return fittings that are only 18 inches down below the grade. It's better to circulate your chemicals and keep the water circulating through an Inflor. And then the other thing that it does is it's the best way to heat a body of water is through Inflor heads. So we're developing a brand new product called E360. And what that's going to do is, because the retail price to do a full-blown Inflor is still kind of up there for some customers. If you're in a market where you've got a season and you think you might be able to offer something to a customer to extend that season an extra month or so by doing a system where you can introduce the heat through the floor, then what we're doing is an E360 system. What that's going to be, 6 heads, 6 collars, 2 of what we call the wide pipe, which is reducing 2 of your ports down to 1. So we're going to give you 6 heads, 6 collars, 2 of those are Q360 valve, our regular valve. All, and for distribution, it's all going to be in one box, one SKU. We're going to have a white version, we're going to have a gray version, we're going to have a gunite version, we're going to have vinyl version. So there's 4 total opportunities there for our industry. And then where we always want you to CAD design a full Inflor, so we can lay it out and make sure if you do it right, you're going to be guaranteed proper cleaning all the way through. I don't really care if you CAD design this one. You place the heads where you want to place them, because really the whole concept is we're introducing chemicals and heating through the floor. We're also going to make, for the very first time, a brand new version of our jet. Our jets now come with 3 nozzles, 10 gallon per minute, 15 and 20. We've always had a bigger nozzle, which is called an XL nozzle, but you always had to buy these separate. So I thought, that's dumb. So now we're going to make an XL jet, and that's what's going to go in the E360. Now, an extra large nozzle gives you 14 feet diameter spray. So depending on the size of your pool and where you place them, even though I don't want anybody to sell it as a cleaning system, if you kind of set them kind of strategically, you can keep the pool pretty clean with 25 gallon per minute heads on that. So that's going to be the E360 system. We're putting all our marketing together on it now. We're creating all our part numbers. You guys at distribution don't quite yet have that part number yet, but as soon as we got that made up, obviously it'll be getting into your system pretty quick. And those, I mean, I could sell you that system technically today, because every part that's in that box, we already have and we already sell. So I just want everybody to think about, maybe this will be an opportunity to be able to offer a little less retail point, and then just sell them on the payback period of how much they'll save on the cost savings of running their heater. And it'll extend their season a little bit as well. And I would guess it would also reduce the amount of cyanuric acid they might put in their pool. Because, you know, when all the chemicals are being introduced at the surface, you got to keep that CYA, especially out here, 110 degrees, man, that cyanuric's getting eaten alive. So heating through the floor will save a little on the chemicals.
Have y'all done any tests yet, like on similar size pools, temperature distribution and time frames? Like, have you done one side by side? to see if you can raise temperature considerably faster?
No. Now, I will say the industry, this is not a novel concept to the industry. Our competitors have done these systems in the past. They don't even talk about them anymore. But I also used to work with a company that was a heat pump manufacturer. So what I've been trying to ask them to tell me is, can you give me data where you guys have done that research to tell me the energy savings, the rising of the temperature per hour through the floor versus through the wall? And I've not gotten anybody quite yet to give me that data. But it just makes sense. Heat rises, right? So if you're introducing it at 18 inches down, it's immediately want to go surface. So I've jumped in a pool before where it was heated, but when you go down to the deep end, once you get 2 feet under, all of a sudden, man, the temperature drops big time in the pool. So it just absolutely makes sense. I've had a builder in Tampa for the last 15 years. He puts commercial floor fittings in his pool. He's been doing this for 15 years. And he heats through the floor all the time. In fact, that's the only way he sells his pool. But he sells it as, I'm going to save you some energy and time. And costs involved. So that'll be our E360 offering. I wanted to show you, this is a pool right here that Presidential Pools did. So this is what a typical plan looks like. And the turnaround time, if you ever have a job that you want to do with our system, the turnaround time is like ridiculous. We got a gentleman, Julio Bedolla, who is guaranteed to have those plans back with you within 48 hours of receiving them. And in most cases, it's the same day. He sends them back. So he sends you a design like that. And over here in the legend, it basically spells out how many jets and collars. Each one of these little circles, he does the jiggly lines to show you how he wants you to zone them off for each zone on the valve. And then within each circle, there's an S, an M, and an L. That tells you out of those 3 nozzles that are in the bag, which nozzle to use on those particular jets. The 10, 15, 20 gallon per minute. Typically all floor heads are going to be 20 gallon per minute. But then when you get into benches and shelves and things of that nature, you're going to be either 10 or 15. But he's always trying to make it 60 or 80 gallons a minute. And he does it 2 ways, because what we don't want to necessarily have you guys do is buy 2 valves and do a slave valve. So we have 6 ports. If you do a 60 gallon per minute, that's 3 heads of port. That's 18 heads in the pool. If you're going to have more than 18 heads, he tries to go 80 gallons a minute. That'll bring you up to 24 heads to 1 valve. So he does that purposely so we don't have to put all these slave valves on the system on there. But yeah, so that's a Presidential Pool. I've been on that site. There wasn't a drop of water in that pool. I mean, in Florida, you dig a foot down, man, you got that sump pump in there with a hose running that water somewhere. This guy dug down 6.5 feet deep, and that was as dry as a bone. But he also had to chisel through granite and other garbage. So, but that's the way he laid it all out. And then, of course, within our in-floor system, we've been offering this drain. This is the Eclipse drain. When this thing is installed, and Tony at Performance Link knows this, because we got builders right now in Florida that don't do in-floor at all, who use our drain. Because, and this is a bad photo, because this would make you think you're looking at a black ring in the floor. That's not accurate at all. But that's all you basically see after it's installed. It's got a single port entry to it. We have different color center caps. So if you did like a blue interior finish, we got a light blue, we got a gray, we got a black, we got a beige. If you were to do something in kind of an earth tone type of pebble surface. But my builders love this because it's just one pipe up. It's not manifolding. It's not out of square. There's nothing to this at all. So this is our Eclipse drain. I would say, again, going back to the R&D at our company, There's other products that we're developing right now that will eventually be out probably the next 60 days, or I'm gonna be able to let the industry know about them. That I think will be white good products that'll be very beneficial for all of you to be aware of. So when the time comes, we'll be doing a big time social media blitz on it. Your builder.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, builders, I know what you guys use for lighting. What are you using for?
I'm using Mitchell's 360.
Oh, so you're using
Yeah,
ours
I'm
now.
using your stuff.
Okay. By the way, on the Spectrum nicheless for you specifically, I don't know if you do 150 footers, but maybe.
All the time.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So this is kind of a unique situation for you, but we've got some cables here that are not 18 gauge, that are 16 gauge, that I can make you 150 foot cord kits on. Which, are you using my transformer, or whose transformer are you using?
We're trying to use your transformer. Sometimes our electricians are swapping them out for their shit, so they charge us for them. But we're trying, we're pushing,
Okay.
we're pushing yours. We've had better luck.
Because the 16 gauge will give you that longer run, will benefit you. And we've got some 16 gauge here, especially for 150 footers. Now, if you ever go into 100 foot or less, I can actually supply you with 14 gauge cables for those Spectrum nicheless. That's why I added that 14 gauge Spectrum nicheless down on the bottom of that chart. So you can see, but I only have them up to 100 feet, so.
I may be switching to your Galaxy stuff. I like that.
I gotta tell you, man, everybody who's seen these are like, dude, when are these available?
Yeah.
I said,
That's a good light.
I know. But we're having extremely positive response to these lights right now. Now, this is interesting as well. I don't have this one out of the box. There's no dome to this lens. It's flat. It's a flat lens on that Galaxy Bright. There's no doming out of it. So I mean, it is really tight to the wall. Now, I only bring that up because a guy was telling me that he does some commercial renovation work. And he said, how much does that lens stick out? Or he goes, how much does the lens stick out on a vivid light? I don't know. You remember we were kind of measuring. I go, 2 inches? I go, why? The NCAA, I'm hearing, is trying to pass a rule that in any competitive swimming pool that the NCAA is involved with, the lights in that pool cannot have any light in there that extends out from the wall more than about 1/4 of an inch. And he said the reason for that was there was a guy swimming competitively in a match, and when he went and did his flip, he pushed off the light because it was sticking out from the wall, and they said, foul, you're cheating. You're taking an unfair advantage on that. And I go, really? So when he said that to me, he goes, how's this light look? And I picked this thing up and I turned it sideways and I go, I don't know, you tell me. And he goes, oh, dude, that thing's flat. And I go, yeah. He goes, oh, this kind of, who would have thought? It's weird, but yeah, it's a flat lens. But 3-year warranty we'll have on these lights as well. All of our Vivid lineup has always had 3 years right out of the box. So we're keeping that same. The transformer has a 5-year warranty. Now, transformers don't usually go south that quick anyway, but it's still the best warranty in the industry as well. So then that's the Eclipse. That's our Abyss, big debris catch. The beauty of the Abyss is that the way we designed the basket, well, it's huge, but it's tapered. And I go, huh, what's with the tapered basket? The hydraulics, the physics of this is that you can still capture all this debris down here and not slow down the flow. So you're not going to start cavitating the pump basket as this thing fills up. It'll continue to move through. Because as you can see, this would be an outdoor pool that gets a lot of mature vegetation in the pool. This is going to capture a lot of debris. But at that point, a homeowner can just come out and pop the lid off this thing and clean it out. Don't have to rely on a service company or anybody to do it. And then anybody, not that many of us are in a vinyl, you're a little in a vinyl market, Shannon, in some of your areas. But somebody had asked, do your collars for your vinyl, do they sit flush in the vinyl or are they elevated up? One of our competitors had a kind of an escutcheon with screws and it would stick up. And they were saying sometimes cleaners tend to want to clamp on it if they put an additional cleaner in for some reason, or you're stubborn, you can hit it with your foot. So our collars are flush with the vinyl. Wow. And then we were talking about all the different retro heads available that we have. So we have all the Paramount A&A quick clean type of retro heads and replacement valves. But here was the next thing we were talking about heating through the floor. This is basically what happens when you heat a pool through the returns. Everything rises to the surface. So we want to try to offer another alternative that'll be relative, and it'll bring the retail price point dramatically down to the owners as well. And then if you have a pool where our standard kit is 6, and maybe that pool's a little extra oversized and you need more, and just get a couple more, collars. If you need 8, then just buy a couple more and throw 8 in there instead of 6. Because some of you are in markets where obviously the pools are a little bit larger. In the Southeast and in Florida especially, residential pools aren't big. They're 13,000 gallon pools. You know, they're 15 by 30s. You know, in Texas is 20 by 40s and 18 by 36 and stuff like that. So 6 in those pools may not quite get you there, but that's your call. But the kit, from a distribution standpoint, I think I'll have a lot more success being able to get a distributor to want to carry a box, one box on the shelf. So that's the way we're gonna package it. Well, that is it, folks. Outside of any questions, one thing I always want to mention to you folks too. I have an iPhone. My business phone is an iPhone. So if any of you guys have an iPhone or your techs in the field have an iPhone and have a question or anything, make sure you get my phone number because I'll FaceTime. I FaceTime people all over the country out on site with one of these retro lights. And the first time they do it, they're a little nervous. They're like, oh, what parts do I use? And am I doing it right? So they FaceTime me and I have to say, just show me the cord. And as soon as they show me the cord, I go, okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what parts to take out of this bag and the rest of them save them or throw them away. I don't care. And after the first time, the tech will come back and go, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I'm not holding cords. Now, not all cords are good. If a cord has a basically round jacket to it, it's not swelled up like a cigar, but it's relatively still a round jacket, then that's fine. I've seen cords that look like Play-Doh where they've just crunched it all together. Can't do those. I've seen some that are so twisted they're almost like pasta cords and they're coiled all around the cable. The trick on these plug kits is there's a grommet, there's a rubber grommet that's internal to it. That's kind of the be all end all to make sure the water is not getting from the backside of the plug to the wire connections. So, you know, it's got to be sitting on a relatively smooth surface to make that seal for you. But in most cases, 95% of the cables are generally good to do retros. But just know too, all of my lights will have cord kits available where the plugs are already on them. So if you do need to pull a cord but still want to use my light, then I've got cords that already have all the plugs attached to them. So we can do it that way as well.